Hello, and welcome to the session about speeding up your development with DS. I am Michiel Oda. Let's get started. DS, also called DataMiner Integration Studio, is a Visual Studio extension made for Visual Studio, of course. So not Visual Studio Code, don't confuse it. It's an amazing tool. It's a must-have if you develop your own connectors, automation scripts, GUI out-help data sources, and so on. Now, how to get started with that? Well, it's very easy. Let's head over to the internet. It's very easily available. Let's go to the marketplace.visualstudio.com. Okay, of course, Visual Studio has a marketplace. A lot of people create their own extensions, their own custom plugins to make development easier. We have that as well. If you search on DataMiner, you'll find, hey, we have a hit, DataMiner Integration Studio, aka DS. We can see it works with Visual Studio 2022 for AMD and also for ARM processors. Can be important for some people. ARM is sometimes less used, but we already support this as well. Now, it's very easy. We just download DS, give it a couple of seconds, and then we can just start with installing it. You can also, of course, install it or download it from within Visual Studio itself, but it does require a Visual Studio restart. So it's personally for me, I find it easier to go via the web browser. Let's just open the file. Then you will see this is the installer that's starting up. We don't really need this window, so we can already close this. So now you will see like, hey, DataMiner Integration Studio, we want to install this. It's made by Skyline Communications. We have a link to the release notes, which is on our docs. Also the license, and then it can choose on which products you want to install this. If you have multiple Visual Studios, we support both, all three. We have community, we have professional, and we have enterprise. We support all three Visual Studio versions. We are only on Visual Studio 2022, 2019 and older have been stopped. We don't support those anymore with the latest versions of DS, which also enables us to use a lot more newer features that Visual Studio provides. So let's install this extension. This will take a couple of seconds. If you don't have the prerequisites necessary, like some of the workflows for Visual Studio, this will already install them as well, so this could take a little bit longer for you. Don't worry, you can just pause the video and wait, and then you can continue following along. So in the meantime, the installation has finished. Let's close it. Now, next up, starting Visual Studio itself. So we have our default screen. Oh, now we see a login screen. With DS, we can just log in with our credentials that we use for the community.dataminer services, or Dojo, DataMiner Dojo, as we call it as well. You have some options. You have Microsoft, you have Google, Amazon, LinkedIn, etc., and your email. Personally, I use a Microsoft account, so I will click Microsoft. Then I will double check, yeah, this is my account. Of course, security. I need to fill in some credentials. Yes, let's see. Okay, there you go. So now DS is properly activated. We can go continue without code, and you can already have a short look. If we go to extensions, you will see now we have DS over here. DS has a lot of items in there. I will go with some basics overview. So we have our settings. Setting is quite important. Especially the first tab is DMA. This shows a list of all the data miners you can kind of publish to, connect with your DS to either put items on there or retrieve items from there. By default, we have a localhost one to just have a default. If you don't have a data miner locally installed, you can just remove that one and add another one. You don't need to have any in there necessarily, but if you want to connect to data miner, you'll need to add them. Another interesting one is the templates. So DS will also on startup install or update at least the latest version of our Skyline DataMiner Visual Studio templates. These are like when you create a new project, the options you have there, like you have a console application, you have a web app, and etc., etc. We have created our own templates and added them to that list. This makes development a lot nicer because we can already pre-fill or add a lot of stuff in there for you that you don't need to worry about. And it also enables us to easily create packages that you can then push to the catalog or push directly to your data miner. So this is, I would say, the most important one to know. The other ones, you can go through them, have a look, but are more special use cases. So let's start with an easy automation script development. Let's head over to new project. Let's create a new project. As you can see, this has already been pre-selected a little bit. You have now here a list of all the categorizations, and you will see that we have a DataMiner one. And DataMiner has a lot of different projects or templates already available for you. Let's pick a DataMiner automation script project. You can also find that here. Click next. Then you give it a name. I will just call it my script for now. I know, not very inspirational, but after a while it gets difficult to find a good name, so let's just keep it simple. So click next. I will say, yeah, I am Michiel. This is just to put inside the script to say like, hey, this was the author. You don't necessarily have to, but it's better to add something so that especially if someone else sees like, okay, who was this created, that they know they can find you. For this scenario, we want to have create DataMiner package checked on. We won't do any CI/CD, that's part of another session, but this will just showcase what we can have already easily. One thing, small thing, let's go tiny little bit back. Never ever check the checkbox place solution and project in the same directory, at least not for DS templates. DS cannot really handle the weird structure that happens then, and it's also not really usable for multiple projects within the same solution. So never ever check this, because otherwise DS will complain and do weird errors. So just don't use it. We try to get rid of it with the templates. Unfortunately, we were unable to, so hopefully in the future, maybe with some changes in Visual Studio, we can eventually do this. But remember, never ever check this checkbox, and then you're good to go. So let's head forward. Yes, let's click create. Then give it a couple of seconds, and there we go. You also get a nice getting started file. For now, you don't need to bother with that. You can read through it, have a quick look about it. It's mostly focused on how the package creation happens and how you can publish to catalog, etc. For now, we will ignore that because this is about DS more. DS, so we have here our script. Our script is a project. It contains catalog information. That is because we added the generate package option. This is if you want to push it to the catalog. For now, you don't really need to worry about that. We have done our script XML. So as you see here, we have our author. Let's zoom in a little bit. We have our author, which I filled in to make it easier for people to see who developed it. And then we have our script exe, which just contains a reference to the project so we can find the C# code. Generally, you won't do much about in here, especially unless you want to have some script parameters. But for now, we will keep it simple. And then we have our C# file itself. So this is the script itself. So we have some pre-filled code already in there to make it a bit more nicer. Let's go to the run save. And there you see we have our engine object. And we can very easily say, hey, engine.generate information for an information event. Add in a string to say like, let's take the default hello world. Definitely not overused. But now we already have a very simple script. We can build the solution. There we go, rather quick. And you can also see already like, hey, package creation already has happened as well. So if we right-click our project, open folder in File Explorer, different screen, sorry, here we go. There you have our project. We go to the bin folder, the debug folder, and the .NET 4.8, the .NET Framework 4.8. So there you see all the DLLs, like a regular project, like a console application you can find in there. And also now a folder or directory called DataMiner build. In there, we have our zip for the catalog information, which is currently not really relevant, and the DMApp itself, which contains the script that you can then use to install on a DataMiner or to push to the catalog. So this makes it a lot easier. You can just click build the solution and you have your script package itself. So that was the basic script. I will not publish it to a data miner. It runs as normal. If you want to publish directly from DS, you can go to the XML, click the publish button. You see there is also an option to choose all the agents you have selected, so you can pick and choose which agent you want to publish to. For now, we'll just skip this. This laptop also doesn't have a data miner, but no worries. But you also saw, hey, I was able to build it with code that actually comes from DataMiner, but I don't have a data miner on this laptop. How can I do that? Well, inside the dependencies of our project, for the packages, you will see, hey, we have the Skyline DataMiner dev automation. The Skyline DataMiner dev NuGet packages, we have automation, common, and protocol. Those are the dev packs, as we call them, the development packages. They represent some of the DLLs, the binaries, from DataMiner that is needed for an automation script or for a connector or for another component. With these, we have access to all the classes and codes that we need to be able to compile this on Visual Studio. If you noticed, let's maybe open the Manage NuGet packages. These are available on NuGet.org, so they are publicly available, so you don't need to worry about that. You just need to have a package source for NuGet.org, but generally that's a default one, but you can very easily add that if necessary. You will see that there are also a lot of versions. We create a dev pack for every released version and also the feature versions. And so the first 3 numbers are the actual DataMiner version. So in this case, it was 10.3.0, because that's our lowest supported DataMiner version at the time of this recording. And then the .24 is just the 24th iteration of that NuGet package. So this automatically increases for every CU that's released, or for if there's something going on with our CSD and we need to rerun it again, it's also an incremental. If you want to know which version exactly it is, on the package details in the description, we always put which version it is with the build number as well, so you can very accurately find the correct assemblies. We also have some others by default in there, like for our security team, they create the effort for creating a security analyzer, mostly for file access and so on. So that's by default installed over there. This can be helpful if it detects like, hey, you're doing some potential security impacted related items, it will notify you about it. And then StalkUp analyzes because we want to have a little bit more structure than pretty codes. Next up, we want to do a bit more complicated things in our script. Just saying hello world is not that much. Let's say, it's still a simple example, but let's say I want to say or create an information event that says how many elements there are on the system. Now, Engine has a lot of items in there. You can find stuff. I think there is maybe no get elements. I think it was find elements. That is an option, but of course, eventually it also gets a bit more limited because it's already with a filter that you need to supply and so on. But we made something which is called the Skyline.dataminer system.something NuGet package, which actually is a unified way of accessing your DataMiner system. Oh, let's ignore this logic that thing. So, how to install that one? Well, again, it's a NuGet package. This time, we just need to add it ourselves. We don't add it by default. You can just browse and search for Skyline.dataminer. Oh, it's still pre-filled in. Skyline dataminer.core.dataminer system. You will see we have 3 of them. We have the common, automation, and protocol. We are an automation script, so we will use our automation one. For the protocol, aka connectors, aka drivers. If you're in a quick action, use a protocol one. The common one is just shared code between automation and protocol, so you generally don't use that one directly. I will just install this one. Let's apply, accept. There we go. Now, how to easily use it? Well, DS also supplies some snippets already, like Visual Studio snippets. How to add that one? It's with the key combination Ctrl-K-X. Can have that. Or right-click. You can have snippet, insert snippet. You see the same things. Let's pick DS because it's our snippets. We are in an automation script, pick automation script, and we have class library. So our NuGet, the DataMiner system NuGet, previously was called class library. So for people that are used to this or know the history, previously we had a class library quick action or exe within automation scripts. But this has been converted into an easy NuGet that's a lot easier to use and has not as much complications. So we just open class library and then, hey, get DMS, the start of everything. As you can see, it adds the snippet to say like, hey, engine.getDMS, and it returns an IDMS. You can also notice that at the top, the two usings necessary has also been automatically added by the snippet, so this makes it also quite easy. So now we have this DMS. We check what's in there. We have a lot of things in there. We can check if an agent exists. We can create properties, create scripts, create views. There's a lot of things you can do with it. We just want to see, hey, get all the elements. Yes, get elements. Don't need to provide anything. That will return a collection of an IDMS element. Now we have a list of all the elements. An IDMS element contains the name, which protocol it is, under which view it is. There's a lot of information. You can go look through it if you want. For now, we want to have it simple. Let's say, hey, engine, generate an information event. There are X amount of elements. Oh, right, I need to add the $sign to have string interpolation. We have the elements dot count, so how many there are elements. And there we go. In a few simple lines, we already have an easy counter of all the elements. Of course, you can do a lot more of that, like if you do a for each and the items or in the elements. Let's maybe call it elements to have it a bit more readable. Elements, and then you can see, hey, we have the IDs, the alarm templates, descriptions, etc., etc. There's a lot of things in there that you can use. I'll leave that over to you to explore. There's also a lot of documentation about this on our docs, so have a look at that if you're not sure. If you have questions, you can go to the DataMiner Dojo, community.dataminer.services, and have a look or ask questions in there as well. So, we have created our script. But the script is just also a script. Script is not everything within DataMiner. DataMiner also has connectors. So let's close Visual Studio. Yes, let's save this. And to make it a little bit easier, let's head back to the internet, to github.com. Already have it pre-selected. Skyline is available on GitHub. We have our organization Skyline Communications. So there's a lot of repositories on there that are publicly available for you to check out or even contribute to. We also have some example connectors. For example, the slc-c-example-rates-snp. So this is an SNMP connector to show the examples on how to calculate bit rates and other rates from standard SNMP interface tables. To be able to get that locally, the easiest thing is create a fork. So at the right side, you have the fork. Let's create that for me. Give it a couple of seconds. You can click refresh, and you will see it's there. With Visual Studio installed, you can also see now we have a button. I have the option Open with Visual Studio. I love this feature, because with this, it will automatically clone it and open it up in Visual Studio, so you can immediately start working with it or modifying it if necessary. So let's open this in Visual Studio. As you can see, it will start a Visual Studio, and it will ask like, hey, where do you want to clone this repository. I will leave the default settings. You can choose where you want to put this. I will clone this, give it again a couple of seconds. There we go. And now we have our connector here. This has been already a bit older connector, so you will see there are some minor warnings and issues that need to be fixed. But maybe by the time this video is out, we will also already have fixed them. If not, we will look into this. So we have our connector. For people that are familiar with it, you will recognize this. We have our protocol tag with the name, description, the params, and so on and so on. Now, connectors, also some info banners, but those are the errors I mentioned. Connectors is something that's been around for a very long time, very, very long time, even before I started working here. So there's a lot of things in there. One thing you really need is having an easy overview, because as you can see, you can scroll quite a bit. So there's a lot of data in there, and this is a rather small connector. To make life easier, DS has some tool windows. So if you go to Extensions, DS, Tool Windows, you see we have several of them. We won't cover all of them. I will just pick some of the important ones that you need for development, because we want to speed up your development, not like explain every single little detail. There's a lot more documentation about it as well, so you can look up in there if you're more curious about the others. The most important one, that's also the best window I find, because that's the root of almost everything, is the DS3 view. When you open that, you can choose where to put it. In this case, it's put to the left. As you can see here, this is basically a parsed version of the XML. This also works with other XMLs, but it's more tailored for connector XMLs. But you can use it for other things as well. So we have here our protocol, the name, description, etc. All those tags you saw. Bonus feature, if you click, for example, integration ID or version, it will jump to the correct location within the XML, which is amazing. Because if you have multiple parameters, as you can see here, we have currently 35, which is not that much. We can easily jump, for example, to the streams table. As you can see, it also mentions it's a table. We also have, for example, if it's a right parameter or not. So this makes life a lot easier, especially if you have a lot of parameters. You can easily jump back and forth between them. Now, there's a lot of other items in here. If we, for example, select the table, you see, hey, we have outgoing connections, incoming connections, and it's the columns that the table has. So these are also all links, like for example, with that trigger. You can also click here, it will jump to trigger that says like, hey, let's trigger on this parameter 1000, which is our table. So you can see that over here. We have done the same for the group and the other trigger. And also, hey, this parameter has a lot of columns. So these are defined over here with all the PIDs. These are all mentioned in here, so you can also easily jump to a column. Navigation-wise, this is the best. You have also a similar item with the chain links here besides a XML tag. So you can also see that, and that's very similar basically on the window here at the bottom left. So instead of trying to scroll here, you can also just easily go this parameter where it's being used and then jump back and forth. If you have like a scenario where there's like maybe 2-3 parameters you need to jump to quite back and forth quickly, you can also right click and pin. And for example, let's take another one and pin. You will see they have been added here. So instead of searching around everything, you can just click and go back and forth between those two parameters. This works also with other items, so feel free to play around with it. But honestly, this is an amazing feature. You can also easily search for example, streams, and it will search for everything that contains the word streams. So it's also a lot easier if you just know a parameter by name or a group by name and to find something like that. And then you can also unpin or unpin all of them if you're finished with that. So this is the DS3 view. Amazing window, a must-have almost for connected development. because it's so much easier to have a clearer view of the XML and also the quick navigation between the XML and then also the tree view. So you can easily find parameters, but it would be nice if you can say like, hey, but what actually updates the value of that parameter? Well, we have another tool window for that. It's quite a recent one as well. So you go to Extensions, DS, Tool Windows. We have the DS parameter update locations. If you open that, you can again place it wherever you want. We have this tool window where you can say, hey, which parameter do I want to select? For example, the system name. And you can see, hey, we have a confirmed update location within the groups. We can double click in there and it will jump to the correct location inside XML. So it's a bit similar to the tree view, but now more search for where does this parameter being set from. So as you can see, the group is an all group. So basically it will retrieve the data from the product, the device, S&P device, and sets it inside the parameter. So we have this confirmed update location. Then we also have possible update locations because especially with quick actions, the C# code, it's almost impossible sometimes to accurately predict if that parameter will be set from just reading the code because of dynamic variables, etc. But we just show all the quick actions where it could be possibly set from and also by which methods. So in this case, we have a protocol.setParameters, which is then just with like a dictionary, like, hey, this parameter with this value. We cannot really detect which one it is. So we just say, hey, this is a possible update location, so then you can easily check it yourself. This already helps out a lot during developments, especially bigger developments, that after a while you're like, wait, where does this get set from? Or especially if you're trying to figure out an issue in a connector that you haven't made, but like a colleague, for example, and that colleague is not available, for example, you can then just easily search here to see like, hey, where is it being set from? Check the possible locations, especially if it's a value that you don't expect. Very, very useful as well. So these are more navigation-wise. If you have spotted, if you already own the XML, you have some buttons here at the top. The publish, very similar to the XML, to the automation script, is to publish to a DataMiner agent. Again, you have also the options to choose which ones if you have multiple ones. But you have some others here. For connector, a very, very important one, always use it, is the validate or the validator window. If you click validate, if the window wasn't open, it will open it up. You can also find it under extensions, yes, tool windows, and then here, yes, validator. You will see, hey, we have 6 active errors. 5 of them are critical. Oof, not really good. But critical are either errors that will break DataMiner itself, or it's because of administrative purposes, or something or security in this scenario. For example, this is already an older connector, so it didn't have the secure coding analyzers yet. But we deemed that it's quite important to have the secure coding analyzers to be aware of security. So that's why we throw a critical exception. We also have a warning to say like, hey, the protocol minimum required DataMiner version, 10.2, is lower than what we are currently supporting, the 10.3. So we also show a warning to like, hey, maybe update this to be in line with what we are supporting. Of course, this is a warning, it's not a critical thing. If you are working for an older DataMiner system and it's your own development, this can be fine. You can also suppress a error message to say like, yeah, we acknowledge this error message, but we know it's not a valid one for us. You will notice there are some extra columns you can have a look at, and that the code, the error code, is something you can click. So in this scenario, let's go for the minimum support version. You can click it, and it will go to a GitHub page. So we have some documentation pages basically about our error messages on the repository of the validator, makes it quite easy, which shows some extra information. So you have a lot of the properties you can see in the DS window itself, but also some extra details, and this can easily be extended as well, like with the proposed changes. If you say like, hey, there is some information missing from this error message, you can easily add it in there. You also notice that this error message has like a small icon besides it, and this is an indication that an automatic fix, an auto fix, is possible. To apply this, you can right-click, have fix, you have this error or all errors of this type. Like if you have multiple errors, like for example, unrecommended characters, then you can apply all errors of this type and then it will all fix all of them. In our case, it's just one. And this error will then basically automatically, let's go to via the tree view, to the compliance's minimum required version, and it will update it to the 10.3. So the current minimum supported DataMiner version. So this is quite nice. Of course, you don't have to use it. You can just Control Z if you don't need it. But you can see it's very easy to do. So this is a validator. Always make sure you press validate before you publish. Also double check, like, hey, is there anything else? Validator is trying to do as much as possible. There's, of course, still a lot of things that we can still add, but we try to focus on the most important ones. If you think there is something missing or you notice, like, hey, this error message is wrong, you can always contact Skyline or make a GitHub issue request or a pull request if you want to contribute on the validator repository itself. So if you just go to the Skyline Communications Organization, search on validators, you will easily find it. Next up, we also have some other buttons. I will not go over all of them, but we have, for example, the display editor. This is a kind of simplified representation of what you will see on Cube a little bit, but more on like, hey, this parameter, where is it located? Where are the other ones located? And then you can also easily drag and drop like, hey, I want this parameter over here, or now I want it over here. And then you can just click apply changes. And then you will see on several locations, the row and column have changed to say like, hey, this parameter is now over there and there and there. If you need to do this all manually, it becomes quite easy to miss and then maybe have overlapping parameters. With the display editor, it makes it does just for you. You also have some other smaller items like, hey, enable alarming, enable trending. Have a look around. There's a lot of items in there, but it's so easy to just drag and drop your parameters, especially from the right, display them on a page, and then you know, okay, it's gonna be something like that on Cube as well. Very easy then to manage. Bit similar-ish for tables then. You have the table editor, which shows all the columns and also how they are being displayed. Because the being displayed is not necessarily the same order as you want to have as the raw data. So you can make a lot of tweaks here, how wide the columns need to be. Like if it's 0, then you can hide them. Those that again need to have alarming, monitoring, etc., etc. So there's a lot of things you can do over here as well. So these are the most important ones, I would say, for connector development, the ones you will use very often, or at least in case of validator, should use very often. Of course, there are still a lot of other tool windows. We have the mappings, we have a grid view, a diagram, a comparer, macros, inject, MIB browser. You know what? Let's have a very quick look at the MIB browser, because at the end there will be an exercise and it has a little bit to do, or has actually a lot to do, with the MIB browser itself. The MIB browser, if you are familiar, SNMP generally is with MIBs. I don't by heart anymore what MIB stands for, so you can quickly look that up if you're very interested. But MIB files is basically a representation of the parameters that are available on the device. If you have such a MIB file, you can then actually, with the files, add it in here and just then select the file, load the files, and it will load it in. If there's anything missing, it will mention it over here under the loaded modules to say like, hey, you're missing this module or something else. Inside the MIB tree, we have by default under this entire chain, we have the management and then the system. These are the default parameters that should be on every SNMP device. For example, the description, uptime, the name, location, etc. If you want to speed up development for SNMP connectors, a very nice thing is if it's a single parameter, can just drag and drop. And there we go, entire parameter filled in with the correct types, the OID already filled in. You just need to give it an ID, maybe make the description and the name a bit nicer because it's still auto-generated, and you already have a full-on parameter. You can go further with this if you want to do more in bulk. So right-click, generate parameters. Yes, select the input type MIP. And then you have the same view as you have on the right. But now you can just say like, hey, select this entire folder, maybe not object ID. And you can also select the table and then also choose which columns yes or not. If you select those, then you can say, hey, select the starting PID, like to make sure that there is no overlap. Let's start at 2000. And then it will say, hey, these parameters we found, and they will have these IDs. So you can still change them if necessary, but as you can see, if you have two the same, it will show an error to say like, hey, there's a duplicate. Then there's some extra options. You can specify timers, modify existing timers. That depends on what you want to build, but you can very easily make a functional connector already with following this wizard. For now, I will just leave it be. It will automatically add two groups, one for the single parameters and one for the table. And then you can also choose, do they need to be part of a timer or not, or which timer. You can click next. It will give more information, like, hey, this parameter will be part of this group if you want to change it. And then click finish, and it will generate all the things that you saw. It will generate the parameters with the necessary right parameters as well. It will generate the groups. Oh, not quick actions, groups. There we go. We have our group, new group 2000. Of course, name it a little bit better. And then inside the timers, you will see, hey, the groups have been added. That's it. And already we added a whole load of parameters. And if you have bigger MIPs, you can just add a whole bunch in there. And with the wizard, you can already add the timers and the groups, and you already have a rudimentary connector that will actually work. So that's an amazing item. So this will speed up your development a lot. There's still a lot of features and items in DS. I cannot show all of them because otherwise we'll be here until tomorrow. And I would love to tell you that, but I think people would snag about me that it's like, yeah, it's too long, there's like too much. So go to the documentation, I would say. So if we go to the internet, docs.dataminer.services, the location for all information about DataMiner. So you have everything over here. And for example, developer documentation, that is what we need. The DataMiner development tools, DataMiner Integration Studio, or DS. It will explain everything like what is DS, what are some of the features, how to install it, what are the options in the menu, which type of editors you have, also more information about the tool windows. All that information is about here. You can find it. If you still have questions, you can go to community, the DataMiner Dojo, as we call it. You have also a lot of information about here, and then under the questions, you can actually ask a question. If you are not sure, or if you are missing some information, or if it's something not clear, go away. A lot of people use this. We even internally use it ourselves because we cannot know everything, but our colleagues, all together, we can know everything. So let's help each other, makes it a bit easier for ourselves as well. So I think we're at the end. Well, the only thing left, you have a small exercise about the MIP browser. Actually, you can find that already also on the docs. So we go back to the docs. We have our DataMiner tutorials. If we scroll down, we have our DataMiner Integration Studio tutorials, and then exploring the DS MIP browser. So this is something you can also, there's another video that you can actually follow step by step if you're unclear, but you can actually make sure that you follow the steps. Do the exercise. Step 3 is a bit different for this video. At the bottom on the dojo, you will find a upload. So take a screenshot of what you made or the file itself and then upload it to dojo. And if you're done it correctly, you will get a little bit of dev points, which is great. because more Devo points is always nice. Numbers go up. So you don't need to do step 3, just upload it to Dojo and you will get some Devo points. And that's about it, I would say. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, the community is a great location. I think I will leave it here. Thank you for listening and see you next time. Bye.